The Marinade.
There's no O in Marinade. Let's try it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Marinade.
Marinade.
Bone marinade. The
That's
Marinade.
The Marinade. With Jason Earle.
Holy rollers in the basement, hallelujah. They ate the bread of Jesus, hallelujah.
Welcome to The Marinade with Jason Earle, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. This is episode 109, and our guest is Ryan Sollee. Ryan is the principal singer and songwriter for the band The Builders and the Butchers. The Builders and the Butchers came into my life at a very formative time with their debut self-titled record in 2007. I was in my 20s. I was trying to figure out what adult me would look like, a little angsty, disillusioned, yet hopeful, and super curious about the world. Ryan Sollee's tunes seem to capture what I was feeling in those moments, and all these years later, the Builders and the Butchers continue to captivate me. They have a wonderful new record of foot-stomping anthems called Hell and High Water, which was released on May 6th, 2022. This conversation is one of those that's a long time in the making and such a thrill. I am stoked to bring you my conversation with Ryan Sollee.
I sing high, 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 high,
Hey,
Yeah,
how's it going, Ryan?
doing good.
Good, man. Thank you so much for doing that. I am very excited to talk with you.
Yeah, same. Let me do one thing real quick. Okay, cool.
All right, yeah, let me double check setting here too to make sure you're loud enough. Okay, great. Cool. Yeah, man, I mean, I told you in the email, but like I've been a fan for a long time, and
Oh, that's cool.
so this is quite the honor. This is one of those things that, like, when I started the show, you know, if you told me I get to sit down and talk to you someday, I'd be like, I'm doing it right.
Oh, thanks, man. If you were to tell me when we started the band that anyone would be interested at all in talking to me about what we're doing, then I would say that's amazing too. So,
That's great. That's great, man. Well, let's get into it then. I've been listening to the new record quite a bit.
cool.
I've spent a lot of time with it, and I love it. It's different. It feels different from other stuff that you've done, and especially as I was like going back through your catalog, and I started at the beginning,
Right.
that self-titled record that I just wore the fuck out back then, you know.
Sure.
And then going through each sort of phase of the band. And what's really exciting to me is how, like, the essence of the things that I loved about that record are still present in the band and in your creative process, but it's just a lot different. It's
Right.
It's more grown up. It's more anthemic. I feel like almost like
Oh, cool.
kind of like feels like it should be played in a stadium almost. Excuse me. Which is fantastic. So I'm interested in, you mentioned sort of like at the beginning the idea that you would be, you know, grateful that anybody would even want to talk. Did you have a sense that this is a different and special thing at that moment?
When we started the band?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, in a sense of like, it always felt like from the get-go, people were happy to be like in the under the umbrella with us, or whatever you want to say. Like it just felt like it wasn't a chore to get people to come to shows or feel like, and it was all of our like friends and people we had been in bands with before and stuff in Portland, but it just felt very natural. It didn't feel like, oh, please come to our show. And, it's like, oh yeah, it's going to be like a party. And It's going to be like this is, it's just going to be, it felt really easy compared to other bands I'd been in where you're like, oh God, if we could only get 20 people to come to this show, and why doesn't anybody care about this? It just felt like people cared kind of from the get-go in a way that felt organic. So that was really nice.
That's great. And, I think what I was drawn to at the time, so I mean, that's around, I'm in like my late 20s when that debut record comes out. And so
me too.
All right. Okay. Right on. That's interesting. I don't think I knew that. So that's kind of like a relatively late start for for a band,
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to me to think about that time because it's such a formative time of your life. And like for me, especially it was. And I like when that record came out, I would have been in law school, I guess is what. Wow. Yeah. So I would have been like, I don't know, trying to figure out what growing up is like. And I think a lot of the things that came out in that early work of yours was helpful because it was like, there were some, kind of spiritual aspects to it. And I was like really fighting with my spirituality at the time and trying to, maybe that's a universal feeling at that point in your life, but sure. But I'm interested in that aspect of it and that tension between sort of like a hopefulness that I hear in your music while also exploring some sort of like heavier, darker elements. And
sure.
And if that's a reflection of just sort of like how you are, or if that's a part of your creative process specifically.
Well, yeah, I've never resonated with a song that's like, here's what you should think, or here's what I'm trying to do. Like I've resonated with songs that are like complicated and weird and, I don't know what to do, or I don't know how to feel, or from a darker place, it's always felt like some people listen to happy music to make them feel happy, but happy music kind of like depresses me. Music is more therapy. And so like listening to someone struggle makes me think like, oh, cool. Somebody else is having that experience too. And so I just have always liked songs like that. So that's what I end up writing. As far as like from the kind of religious or spiritual realm, as a band, you kind of categorize your songs into like party or good time songs and like fun songs, and then you have like the songs where people are going to connect kind of emotionally to a song. And most people are like, well, I'll write a love song or whatever, but like I also that's kind of been really done. And I love the emotion and the feeling of gospel music, even though I don't like resonate necessarily with the message. I love the deep belief and the like, it shows through the passion. And I absolutely love that. And I love also kind of like agnostic gospel songs or gospel songs where it's like, I don't know what I think, but I'm feeling this. So that's kind of where those songs are coming from.
Well, that's another thing that resonates with me is that I love gospel music, but because of a lot of the trauma from growing up in the church, I don't like listening to it,
Right.
And so that's one of the things I love about the Builders and the Butchers is that like I get, and Pine Hill Haints does a similar thing for me. There are a few bands that kind of tap into that gospel feel in a way that I can access it without feeling like any sort of residual trauma from my upbringing.
It's beautiful. Like there's nothing, all the different, through COVID, I'm just having like constant brain farts. So I'm really, really sorry. But like,
it's all good. There's
all these incredible, like the artistry behind some of the gospel singing is the best art in that we've ever had, like in our country or whatever you want to say. And it's so sad how Christian music has been so co-opted and it's just so artistically devoid of anything good. But the old stuff is incredible. These people singing together just to sing together for no other reason. So it wasn't about money. it was just about community and faith and these things that are all good things. When you start tying it to this is how you should think and this is what you should do, that's where it becomes problematic. But from just a pure community, spiritual, the reasons for making art, it's the most pure, beautiful reason to make it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. So let's kind of somewhat shift gears here on
Sure.
on the tail of that, which is your songwriting, which has the elements of so many different things, right? The songs have gospel in them, and they have folk, and they have rock, and they have country. There's so much to the songs, and there's so many different layers. The storytelling part of it, though, I find really interesting, because I wouldn't characterize like your writing as sort of like a linear story necessarily. It feels like there's a lot of imagery that helps to tell the story. There's a lot of emotion that helps to tell the story. And it's not necessarily a traditional like ballad sort of style as I hear it, Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like on the process end?
Yeah, that's a really good way to say it. There's a certain thing where if you're doing something in the folk scene or whatever, it's so easy to get like sucked into something that's pretty generic, as far as like we're the new old blues gospel blah 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 singers, and it sounds just like it's so easy to be like, here's our lane. And I appreciate kind of weirdos who take pieces from different genres and kind of mix it all together in a stew. And like, to me, like the kind of blueprint for that is someone like Tom Waits. Like Tom Waits doing a song that's like Cuban inspired doesn't sound like Cuban music because he's putting it through his fucked up weirdo filter. But it's almost like it's like all the wrong notes or something. It's all the shit that like, Santana wouldn't play.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful in that it's totally fucked up. It's like I don't know how to, it's like the song version of like a Mad Max car. Like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Look at that. But but it's like weird and it barely runs, but like that's what makes it cool.
Oh, that's so well said.
And so I love thinking about songs in that way. Like, how can we like fuck this up to where it doesn't just sound like a thing that's been done or whatever. And so then you have like more things to choose from. They're not my favorite band ever, but I love there's a Jack White quote in the White Stripes where he's like talking about the album White Blood Cells, and he's like, we wanted to make a blues record with no guitar solos and no 12 bar. What are you left with?
Yeah.
The feeling of it.
Right.
And so like that's sort of, I think, getting at what you're asking.
Oh, that's so interesting. So what does that look like in practice? Are you getting up and writing every day? Are you getting together with the band to write? Like when you're writing songs, what does that, and I recognize that has changed, especially since you all live in different places now. But what does that look like for you in practice?
Well, my songs come like a flood or something. Like I'll have 6 months where I hardly write, and then 6 other months where I can't not write. Like it's never I'm gonna sit down and write. Like the songs just kind of come, and I have to do it when they come. And so, and that there's times where I'm like, oh shit, am I just done? And then like a bunch of songs will come, or I'll feel inspired and just write like crazy. But as far as one thing that's great about our band is that like everybody in the band comes from such a different musical place and has such different ideas and are very, very picky about what they want to do, that if I write something that everybody likes, then I know that I've run through like all these different gauntlets of taste, and like this is probably something that's good. Does that make sense? Like
it makes a ton of sense.
And they'll tell me like I'm just not feeling this, and I have to either rewrite it or just listen to that and move on to something else. And I've learned that that's such a great thing. instead of being like offended or like butthurt that like, hey, I worked on this, guys. You know, it's like, if we're not feeling this, let's do something that we are feeling.
That's really interesting. So it sounds like you've come to a place where you're comfortable with that. Have you always felt comfortable with those filters?
No, you need to be like, we've been a band for almost 17 years, you know, and so of course at the beginning you have these little ego whatever things, and you feel like, oh my, what's wrong with you or whatever, but you learn over time when you start like going through the process enough times, you're like, oh, this is good, and I really appreciate this more than I dislike it.
So are there moments that you mentioned how it kind of comes in sort of fits of inspiration? Mm-hmm. Are there commonalities to those times? Like, is it because you're like, I don't know, nurturing your soul in some way in those moments? Can you identify a pattern?
That's a really good question. I've tried to think about that, and I don't know exactly, but I do know that I'm not the kind of, like, I've heard of people, I'm going to go to the beach for a week and get a cabin and write this masterpiece. I'm not that way. I am more like, I'm super busy, and almost like my mind has to get into like almost like a manic, super busy state. And then within that, like my brain is stirred up, and then the songs come. So I'm just like, oh fuck, I got to record this, blah, 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 blah. It's not, if I had all the time in the world to sit down and write something, I'd get nothing done.
Oh, interesting.
I have to operate from like, okay, I have 20 minutes right now before I go. I wrote more songs that I've been proud of when I'm like, okay, I have to go to the grocery store in 20 minutes, but I have just a chunk of time to write right now. So let's get something now.
Almost like a self-imposed urgency sort of thing.
Exactly. Yes. That's right.
That's really interesting. I'm fascinated by that because I know like a lot of songwriters feel the same way. A lot of folks say like, if I book studio time or whatever, then I know it's going to work. But a lot of folks are like, nope, I just need space. And it's so interesting to me that you sort of are like creating your own sort of senses of urgency around it. I haven't heard it put quite like that.
Yeah, it's almost like my brain needs to be all fucking stirred up to be able to tap into that, which is totally counterintuitive. Yeah, but that's just how it's been for me.
Right. I find that kind of inspired. I find all the fact that and the more I do this show, you know, for years now we've done it, the more I realize just how there is no one way to do it and how interesting it is that people have those different processes.
Right.
I'm super curious also about, you know, earlier we were talking about being, you know, in your late 20s when things start to happen for the band. And it seems like, I mean, you were what, 15 or so when you started playing guitar? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in the scheme of things, like that's relatively late start. I feel like, you know, a lot of folks start playing earlier, or they're at least like, you know, they're in punk bands or garage bands earlier. And so I'm interested about like, if you feel as though how that has impacted sort of your process as a creative, and what kind of like led to it, the later start.
Yeah, I definitely have been playing in punk bands since I was 16, and kind of like, and always had something kind of going as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of the later start was that I went to college and had a career as like a fish biologist, which is totally another thing.
Yeah.
And I kind of like was kind of straddling the line between like, I'm in my bands, but also have my like career. And so I moved to Portland in 2003 with my punk band from Alaska, and we all moved here to do that. And we started playing in Portland. And what we kind of realized after a year was that, like, you know, Portland has had an incredible music scene. And there's not a million, but, you know, hundreds of bands here. And a lot of them are really good. And a lot of them are like, what we kind of came to is that, like, oh, you can't just be a punk band here. You have to be doing something like kind of different. You have to be doing, like, in order to kind of like set yourself apart or whatever, be noticed, then you have to like do something kind of weird.
Yeah.
And so I thought about like all the ways in which the band I had been in did what it did. And I was like, let's just do a band that doesn't do shows. Let's do a band that finds people on the street. Let's do a band that like is weird and, you know, and so like that was a different approach. And I think it helped kind of start something, a new feeling with the band. But as far as like a late start, I think it was just like, basically I'd been in that punk band, straddling the thing of like career and band. And, you know, as the Builders and Butchers got kind of going, I was working down here as a fish biologist for like 4 years too. So, wow. You know, it's just one of those things that's hard to fully commit when you have that job and that other thing that you went to college for and all those things. So
yes, dude, I am I'm there right now. You know, I'm in 13 years into a career in education, and I'm at a kind of a crossroads.
Yeah.
And I'm very seriously considering like pursuing my creative loves a little more aggressively. And so I'm interested if you have any like lessons that you learned from that time, like, because that's tough. Straddling that line is tough for so many folks. Yeah. How, you know, can you think back to like at what point you went, all right, I can make this creative thing work?
Well, you know, I was stringing along jobs through fish biology, but I knew I didn't want, like, I love being outside and working on rivers and doing that kind of physical work, but I knew I didn't want to get promoted because then you just have a desk job. And so I was like, I don't want a desk job. And so I was like, and I remember there was a moment where like, I just kind of kept getting these temporary jobs and stuff. And I had this one job that was just like sitting in a trailer tagging fish all night. And it was like a night shift job with like a bunch of local kind of meth heads who like would get a paycheck and then take off. And I was like, I don't need to be doing this. I need to be doing my fucking band. Let's get out on the road. And so like, it's one thing for like me to be making that choice. And then it's another for four other guys to also make that choice. But I think a number of things have to happen. And there was a booking agent living in town that really got us kind of going on the road and set up tours for us. And he now books the National and the Decemberists, and he books a ton, Tame Impala, like, but as he was on his ascent, he started booking us. And so we ended up doing shows that we frankly had like no business doing, but he got us these incredible shows and really good opening tours, like for Amanda Palmer from the Dresden Dolls and Murder by Death, and just really helped get us kind of like that little foot in the door to be able to do this further. And kind of set us up with people and got us management and just did all these things. And so like, so sometimes it just takes that person or two people to like give you a little nudge. Okay,
that's interesting. Yeah, so just sort of like, I mean, there seems to be a common thread with folks who do that, and that is that you have to kind of, you're doing the work, both the creative work and then whatever is paying the bills at the time, while also you kind of got to get a break, right? You kind of have to have like, it sounds like there's a lot of fortune that happened there.
Yes, yeah, there is, and you know, we ended up, and we've only ever worked with really amazing, honest, straightforward people, which is just such a rare thing when you talk to other bands. I'm sure there's always some shithead who screwed you over or whatever, but our team has always been really solid. Maybe they're sharks, but there are sharks.
right.
But and they really truly are not trying to, you know, do anything that isn't in our best interest. And so like you can't do it on your, like, I would say, as far as an advice piece, just connect with good people who can help you.
Right.
Because you can't do it on your own. And also the other thing is, and I don't know, are you, if your creative endeavor is musical or something else,
It's more for me, I'm I write, and so like I in a dream world I would write novels, I think. But I do
Cool.
write songs, and I'm
Mhm.
working on getting out and playing them more. That's a relatively new thing that I'm still
Mhm.
have a lot of imposter syndrome about.
I still do too. So don't.
Really?
That's the thing. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Like,
so interesting.
do I deserve to? That doesn't go away. But that's part of why like you do it. You know, it's like
Right.
therapy.
Right. Yeah. It's we talked about church earlier. I've said this before on the show. It's my church. You know, the
Yeah,
music
that's
is
right.
my church, right? And that's where I feel that's connected to
Same.
whatever it is, you know, cosmically out there.
Yeah.
Kind of a quick selfish aside. I'm a huge Amanda Palmer fan. Did you get to spend time with her?
Sure. Yeah.
What was that
we
like?
toured with her for 6 weeks. She is. I would say there's nobody I've met who has better fans as far as like once an Amanda Palmer fan is your fan, that's a fan for life. And there's no one who's better to her fans than Amanda.
Yeah.
She is such a dedicated person, like as far as owning what it is to be Amanda Palmer and fully embodying that at all times, and seriously like loves her community. And like she's not too good to have any interaction with anybody. She's awesome as far as like connecting with her people, and you know, being a really for someone as like free spirited, she's also someone who's extremely grounded and works really hard, and you know, always in the green room doing vocal scales before the show, like not slamming whiskey, but alone doing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
she's always working on her craft, and I have a lot of respect for her.
That's great. So she is who we think she is. Yes, that's great to hear.
She is a genuine person. Like her or not, she's Amanda fucking Palmer. that's the deal. So like, you might not be into that thing, and that's fine. But if you are, she's all in with you. So it's
that's great.
Pretty fucking cool.
Man, I saw her in 2019. I think it was in Atlanta, and it was just, I mean, it's not hyperbole to say that was a life-changing show. You know, it was just that kind of experience. You know,
before we did this tour with her, she had been in Europe, and somebody ran over her foot just on the street. She stepped out, and somebody in Europe, they don't give a shit about you. If you're on the road, you're going to get hit. It's not like here.
Yeah.
And so somebody ran over her foot. And so she had to like, instead of canceling the tour, she just like adjusted everything to work around the fact that she could not walk.
Wow.
But like, she did it and pulled it off, and it was fucking cool. Like, she had these people carry her through the crowd every night up to the thing. I'm just like, that's totally like the show must go on, and fuck everything else is kind of the deal. And yeah, tons of respect for her.
That's awesome, man. We talked about the beginnings of the Builders and the Butchers, and then there's this kind of, now things are so different for all of you, and you're all over the place, and you're doing different things. And I'm interested in sort of, it's not like you broke up, but no. You know, you're not doing the same thing. You're not doing the same, you know, regular album cycle and tour. And I'm interested in that because that's relatively rare in my experience, that a band does what you all are doing. Usually they kind of like just call it quits and maybe come back together at some point. Or, you know, can you talk a little bit about like how that moment where you're kind of, now you're separate, but you've decided to keep this thing going?
It's, you know, it's always been really, it's a lot there to unpack. I think like the overarching, like the big one is kind of like we're all like, you know, half of us are parents now. So even if we all did live in the same town, we wouldn't be doing the same shit, because I have to take my kids to school, and like I have to put them to bed. And so I can't like stay out late and party like we used to, or go to the bars like we used to, and do that stuff. And so like, even if, you know, a lot of the guys do live in town, and like I see them sometimes, but not like I used to, just because I don't have the time. And so when we do have the time, when we make the time, then we like are very, this is what we're doing. Like we're focused on the band. But I would say as far as like the longevity goes, you know, I get to be in a band with like my 5 best friends. And as you get older, you realize how fucking rare that is. Dude. Like there's always interpersonal stuff. And like, we literally have like the best time when we're together. It's just a good excuse. Like basically the shows and doing the band is like an excuse to hang out with your friends more than we got to go rule the world with our cool ass music. Like, it's just like, it's just a way to like make things together, put things into the world, hang out with your friends, and hopefully not lose money. Like that's kind of like the thing. And so like, and I think everybody in the band to some degree or other has like this kind of gratitude about it. And it's such a better place to operate from than we gotta get this show, and if we don't, we're fucked, or we gotta get this booking agent, or we gotta get this thing, and we gotta do this or that. It's like we do kind of like the shows we want to do as much as we can without like fucking up our lives severely, and trying to have fun and connect with people.
Dude, that sounds liberating.
It is. It's truly like it's, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the people who support us. I mean, like literally the like it is a thing, not because of us, but because people come to see us. And I've like, as someone who's 43, I have like insane amounts of gratitude to have that in my life. Yeah. I never have to feel jaded about it. You know, I feel like the most, if it all ended tomorrow or I got hit by a truck and died, I would in my last moment feel just internally grateful to have this.
That's so great to hear. You know, and we were talking about Amanda's fans. I mean, you've got a passionate fan base too. And there's something about the music that continues to resonate with people. I mean, seriously, I get, and it's usually the Night Part 1, but I get like some of those early songs stuck in my head about once a month, you know, and have for many years. And I got no complaints about that. You know, cool. It's a nice problem to have. And because there is a timelessness to those songs, to all of the music that you make. And that forms like such a connection too. So people, you know, I would imagine are definitely going to show up for this record, Hell and High Water, as well, because of that, that connection that people have to your music.
Yeah. I just feel great, like super grateful for that. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's insane to me, you know, like when we started this band, really the goal was, I want one day that like, if we played a show in some random town in Alabama or something, 50 people would come. And I feel like that's generally been met. And so that's all I want is, you know, to connect with folks and have that, you know? Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I feel very, very fortunate.
Oh, that's beautiful. We talked at the beginning about how the new record is still very much a Builders and Butchers record, but it's different. It's just, there's a different feeling to it. There's a maturity to it in the themes. It's a rock and roll record, right? You know, and I'm interested in sort of, did you set out to go like, this is a different thing, or did it just like, how did that come about that it's got that same essence, but it's clearly different?
Well, whatever, here's a secret or whatever band thing, but like whatever you set out to do, but the end product is going to be different than that, you know? Right. Like whatever you're like, especially when like, you know, you got like 5 other guys that are having input and all these different things. And so it's not going to be the thing that you thought it was going to be or whatever. But I had this, like, as far as like it being a rock record, I have kind of this feeling that like there isn't like rock on the radio, or like, you know, I'll do this exercise like with bands, like what's the best rock band to come out in the last 15 years? And people are like, well, I don't even know. Like it's a hard, for me, it's a hard question to answer. and it almost feels like rock music is becoming as antique as bluegrass or gospel or all these things. It's almost like a throwback thing. And so I think a chunk of the answer is like, we wanted to like make a rock record, because like that's sorely lacking right now as far as like what's getting played on the radio and all these things. So that's a piece of it. So yeah,
I find that interesting, that conversation, that exercise interesting too. I was on a plane recently, and there was a guy sitting next to me, and he was probably like, I don't know, late 50s, early 60s maybe, and he was lamenting the fact that there's no great rock music anymore. And I kind of like felt as though I had to be sort of an ambassador of like our generation. And I sort of bristled at his comment, and then I had to scramble to find those bands, because I think you're right. Like there is a lot of great rock music, but there's, I think, here's what I think has happened is that there's so much like, there's just so much, we have access to so much that it's so easy for us. Like I am going to gravitate toward Americana stuff. Like I'm going to be consuming that stuff. It's what I grew up on. Me country too. Music and bluegrass, right? Like I just love that stuff. And so, you know, Sturgill Simpson's putting out a record every couple of years. I'm going to listen to the hell out of that record, right? Like, yep. I'm going to listen to every Isbell record a million times. I'm going to, you know, and so it doesn't leave a lot of room. And I, you know, those guys make rock music too, but it's definitely not what we're talking about.
Right.
I think there's a band Rookie out of Chicago.
Okay.
Those guys are really cool. I had them on the show.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
I'm just desperate to.
Yeah, those guys, man. And there's a whole scene up there. I feel like they've got a thing that Chicago's got a rock and roll thing going. Those guys, good. Twin Peaks, those guys are still doing really cool stuff. Rookie. There's just some things happening there that I'm not all that plugged into, you know, but I think that's the key, is like figuring out how to get plugged into that, because the algorithm's going to give me, you know, the things that it knows I'm already addicted to.
Right. It's like it's almost like that with politics or anything else. Like, oh, here's what you like. And so here's everything you like. And it's like, that doesn't help anything.
Right.
But except for me to just stay in my lane. But that's good to hear.
Yeah. Or here's what you definitely don't like. I'm going to piss you off with this. Right. So it's like one of those two things.
Yeah. Let's like put some Hoobastank on there or whatever. And then like just occasionally, so that you just remember what you hate.
Oh man, this is the first Hoobastank shade ever on the Marinade. I'm
really sorry. I just thinking of like the dumbest band name I could think of. I don't actually hate. I don't even know what that band sounds like. I just thinking of a ridiculous band name. Yeah, I could tell you some fucking bands. Yeah, man. It is tricky. I think I think that there's like, not that they're my favorite band of all time, but like, where's the REM, where it's a band that has commercial and critical success, is on the radio, is something else. Not that, and again, not like my favorite band ever, but just a band like that, where everybody can say like, this is a great American rock band. That's plays stadiums, but also is like critically acclaimed and considered great.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I think like, when you say that, they don't play stadiums necessarily, but I think of the National, for example.
Yeah, that's a good band.
Yeah, I think there are some. It's just, but that's an interesting thing too, because I would think of the National's been around a long time, you know. So I like that some of that may be from a bygone era. I don't know the answer to that, but I
mean they're all 50.
Right. Right.
I'm looking for someone who's 25, but then I'm trying to adjust the goalposts or whatever. It's just interesting. I think what you're saying about Chicago is cool. I felt like there's a loss of scenes and sounds of scenes, and it's been more like, here's your Americana thing that you live in, and these bands are kind of from everywhere. But like, I would love to hear about like what Olympia was in the early 2000s, or like, you know, this place where people would go and make music and it would stir itself up. It feels like that's a little bit lacking now.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably compounded, of course, by the pandemic too. And
Yes.
I was thinking about it recently because I'm finally getting out to shows, and I have been for a little while now, but I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to go to the kinds of places where that's potentially going to happen. And
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people who think similarly to me, and so that's going to
Mhm.
hurt a potential scene because we're feeling that. I
Yep.
I kind of have a little bit of guilt. I went to I went to see Garth Brooks the other day, and
Yeah.
it was so much fun.
Of
But
course.
and so much nostalgia, and it was of course like a perfect show. Like he's
Yep.
incredible. But there's 70,000 people there, and that next morning I woke up and I was like, oh, should you have done that? Was that okay? And I don't know
Yeah.
the answer to that, but but there are those moments that we're now wrestling with that could
Yeah.
potentially squash a scene before it ever gets started at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. I feel weirdly, I went to a basketball game the other day, like a Blazers game, and there was full of people. And I was like, man, this feels like I'm cheating on myself or
Yep.
something. But I almost feel like, just from a mental, I almost feel like 300 people packed into a sweaty club with a low ceiling that's not ventilated, for me, is like way more sketchy than a big stadium. You know what I mean?
100%. Austin
Like-
Lucas came through with this really cool tour he was doing with all queer country musicians, and
Mhm.
they played Will's Pub here in Orlando, which is one of my favorite rooms.
Yeah.
And I've seen Austin in that room since the pandemic began, but there was just something about that night. I was just like, I'm going to be anxious the whole time, and I'm not going to be able to enjoy it, and it's like,
Yeah.
it depends on the day too. There's some moments where I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm good. I'll go it. At this point, I got to get out there. And then some moments where I'm like, I don't know. But I think there are these scenes, like I said, in Chicago is the one example I have of those guys are all young guys, and they're making really kick-ass rock and roll music. And so, it's not all doom and gloom for rock and roll.
No.
But you all have definitely made a wonderful rock and roll record, and I'm excited for folks to hear it.
Thank you. Thank you.
A couple more questions about the record and the process of the record. It sounds like a theme that has come up as you've been talking about the band is that there seems to be quite a democratic approach to small d democratic approach to like the process. And I'm interested in like a little bit more granular in practice, sort of what that looks like if you are coming with the song idea and you start playing it, and then everyone's chiming in on their thoughts. Are you playing them like rough demos of them, or is it a live kind of experience?
I do send guys songs sometimes, where I'm like, hey, check this out. But more often I'll be like, okay, here's a batch of songs. I like to come with a batch of songs, because like if you come with one and nobody likes it, then it's kind of like, oh, okay. But
I could kill the momentum.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like we just start playing, and it's almost like most of the time, if it happens and the song is working, nobody has to like say anything. People just start playing. And then there's a discussion about like, what about putting this part here, making this part longer? And there's like this like little bit of like negotiating the song out. Like, okay, I like this, but what if we extended this? Or this seems a little boring. Let's do an outro jam or something that makes it like everybody kind of puts in their 2 cents. We try all these things, and then we've gotten to the point now to where we can kind of like just tell mostly what works, and very few times are people like dying on a hill of like, no, it's got to be like this. If like somebody wants it that way and 4 or 5 other guys are like, no, then people are mostly like, okay, I get it, or whatever. Yeah, there's not I don't know. It is democratic, but it's also like I am the one bringing the songs in.
Right.
I do have, I would say, like more say as far as how it goes.
Okay.
But I also want at the same time everybody to feel ownership of their part, and everybody to feel ownership of the process, so that frankly so that they're engaged and you get the best out of them. I don't want people to feel like I'm just dictating what they do, and then you're not going to have an inspired guy.
Well,
then.
especially with the music that you make. I mean, your music is very dependent on everybody being bought in. I feel like it's it wouldn't work if you didn't have everybody on board.
Yeah. It's that thing of like, who are you writing the song for? Is it coming from like, I have to express my personal thoughts and feelings and hopefully you connect with this, or is this just for you? And I think we've erred towards this is for you. This is music for people.
Yeah.
It's not music. Like, there's music for musicians and like, oh, that guitar player is so impressive, or that drum, listen to that drum solo.
Yeah.
Fuck, he shreds.
Yeah.
We're not about, like, obviously it's good to, be musically fleshed out and sounding good, but it's not, it's about, okay, who and how will someone connect with this song?
Right, man, that's great. This has been such a pleasure, Ryan. We usually end on the art that you're inspired by at the moment, or like that you're fired up about. But before we do that, you made me think of something that I'm curious about. So all our discussion about rock and roll and so forth, and sort of generations of music. I'm a big fan of the Well-Read Comedy guys, and they have they had a question one time on their podcast where they asked like what generation, like what decade rather of me, if you had to listen to music from just one decade, popular music from just one decade, like what decade would you choose? And I'm curious about your answer after our conversation.
Man, that's a tricky one. But I'm such a huge punk rock fan, and I honestly would say like the 70s, because I'm such a huge punk rock fan. But there was so many things, there was so many genesis happening then, and it was kind of a time of, there was a lot of social jadedness, and there was a lot of art came out of that was really fucking cool, like really desperate and scary, and people were really reaching for something in like the 70s rock bands and 70s punk bands and 70s funk bands, and just there was a really interesting feeling happening then musically.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
cool. All right, so
that in the 1420s.
Yeah, right.
Incredible.
Well, I always say 2010 to 2020, because you still get, because like the problem with the 70s is you're not getting hip hop really.
That's true.
But
like maybe just the very beginning nuggets.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
Really. That's true.
But in 2010 to 2020, you got, a lot of classic hip hop artists, especially from the 90s that I grew up on, still making music, and then you got like visionaries like Kendrick Lamar putting out records, all the great Americana stuff, and this sort of Americana boom is during that time. Classical music is still being made. I guess that counts, right? Sure. You can stick new recordings of classical songs or whatever. So, but anyway, it's just an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
But what about now? Like, what are you, maybe a book you've read, or, a movie you've seen that's fired you up lately, record?
I'm a really big Mountain Goats fan.
Yeah.
And he wrote a novel called, I think it's called like Devil in White Van or something like that. And I love that fucking book. I really like that guy. He's so strange and such a funny lyricist. But like, speaking of like punk bands, they're not like new, but in the last 10 years, there's this band called Iron Chic, and it's CHIC, and they're like a bunch of like guys, and they're around 40, making really, really awesome kind of hot water music-ish.
Cool.
Kind of like, not folky punk, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Blue collar punk. I
like that new hot water music record too that just came out.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. It's nice to hear people are doing that still. I went and saw Cursive play a show about a month ago, and they're still fucking awesome. Like
Cool.
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Hot water music in a veil. I've had Chuck Reagan's been a guest on the show.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah. I'm sure that guy has. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just such a fascinating guy. I mean, he's lived a hell of a life. And but they played with a veil in like Atlanta or something a couple months ago. And I couldn't make it, and I was so bummed. Like, what a
Yeah.
those I didn't really have a punk phase. I never really listened to much punk music, but I did listen to those bands and Against Me,
right.
you know.
Yeah. Against Me's awesome too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I forgot you said something that made me think of something else, but I don't remember what it was. Dude,
I gave you my own brain.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I got to climb into your brain a little bit this morning, and I'm so thankful for your time. And I'm such a pleasure to get to talk to you. Like I said, I've been a fan for a long time, and and the record's wonderful. I'm really excited for folks to get to hear it. I need to pre-order my copy so that I can get that vinyl. Just really grateful, Ryan, and thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate talking to you, and anytime, or it's been really, really fun.
Awesome. Cool. Well, all right. We'll see you down the road.
Yeah, man.
Ryan Sollee, y'all. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank all of you for listening and supporting this thing. Getting to talk with Ryan of the Builders and the Butchers is one of those moments that I only dreamed of when we started this thing back in 2015, 16. The song you are hearing in this episode is Stop the Rain from the Builders and the Butchers' wonderful record, Hell and High Water. TheBuildersandTheButchers.com for all things The Builders and the Butchers, and give the new record and all the records a spin, y'all. I absolutely love the way Ryan writes, and you will not be disappointed if this is your introduction to the band. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade, including written pieces, photography, our online store, and more. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter. Also TikTok. We're on TikTok these days. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support the Marinade. If you really like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community. For just a few bucks a month, you can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life and provide a window into the process of making the Marinade. The last 2 episodes of Jason's Journey have been extra special. We had extra content from our episode with Van Plating. We also had a conversation with Jordan Foley and Thomas Wynn, which was recorded after Jordan's set with his band The Wheelhouse in support of the Colonel. That one's actually available for free if you don't feel like signing up for the Patreon. I also post What I'm Getting Down On, which is an examination of the art that is inspiring me at the moment over on Patreon. Sometimes we get together for Patreon happy hours. All kinds of fun stuff, y'all. Patreon.com/Marinade Podcast if you are interested. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, you can just Venmo or PayPal us. We'd appreciate it. A little tip would be awesome. We're just at the Marinade on those channels, and all the money goes right back into the making of the show. We are working to very exciting news. We're looking to cover the Philadelphia Folk Fest, the Philly Folk Fest in August, and so all the money that comes from the Patreon going right back into that experience, getting there, lodging, all that kind of stuff. And there's some great potential guests up there. Warren Treaty's going to be playing. There's a handful of people that we've had our eye on for a long time, and this might be the time that we'll get a chance to talk with them. Above all, everybody, just thank you for listening and supporting the show. This is a free show. It will continue to be a free show. And I'm just super grateful for every single one of you who supports this. It's truly enriching for me personally, and I hope that it does the same for you. There is no review under 2 for this episode, everybody, but I do want to take a few seconds to announce something new, and that's our weekly title playlist. It's called Marinade Musings, and you can find it on our social media pages, as well as our website, marinadepodcast.com, or just by going to title and searching Marinade Musings. We're going to do it once a week. In short, it's just a list of songs I find interesting, stuff I'm letting marinate. I'm having fun with it because I think, sometimes I never really got in the playlist game before. I would post one with each episode, but I don't really follow playlists. I don't know. That whole sort of subculture in the music industry is something that I never really did much of. But then I realized I get pitches from publicists, and then people mention bands to me, or I read about somebody, and then, instead of, like, I don't go back a lot of times. And so what I'm trying to do here is sort of like collect ideas of things that we might want to explore on a deeper level. And so far it's been super fun. This is only the second one that I'm about to publish, but it's really kind of reminded me to go back and listen to some stuff that maybe would have fallen through the cracks before. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you learn about a new band that you fall in love with, or even just somebody that gets your toe tapping for that moment. Y'all, thank you so much. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.